Welcome to Enlighten the Mind. Is your mind full or are you mindful? A BGSU Wellness Connection peer education presentation. My name is Kelsey and I've been a peer educator for 2 years at BGSU. I'm super excited to be able to share the information, research, mindfulness techniques, and resources that are available in this presentation. So a little bit before we get started, the Wellness Connection is an office within Recreation and Wellness that provides health and wellness programming to the campus community. Within the Wellness Connection is a program called Peer Education, which is a place for students to become trained peer facilitators who contribute to the safety and well-being of campus by delivering accurate and updated health information through fun and interactive presentations. So this mindfulness presentation is one of the presentations that we offer through Peer Ed. Typically it's done in person, but we're having some new experiences here by putting it on video. Before we move into the activities, it's really important that I specify that the purpose of this presentation is to generally decrease levels of stress and anxiety through mindfulness. And while practicing mindfulness is something that is encouraged for everyone to try, it is totally understandable that dealing with stress is difficult and challenging for everyone in different ways, and it may be necessary to seek advice from a medical professional, counselor, or therapist for assistance and finding solutions beyond what is discussed in this presentation. Mindfulness can be used in the context of psychotherapy, but peer educators are not counselors or therapists, and so the information provided here is just to present some research findings and give examples of mindfulness techniques. And if you're interested in learning more about mindfulness in a psychotherapy context, then it is encouraged that you seek out a professional in order to do that. So the first activity that we'll start with here is the mindful jar. I'm beginning with a definition of mindfulness. Mindfulness is kind of a buzzword right now, and so I think this presentation is a really cool way to kind of settle on what it actually means, what this term is referring to when we hear it out in the world. So the definition from Jon Kabat-Zinn is mindfulness is paying attention in a particular way, on purpose, in the present moment, and non-judgmentally. Kabat-Zinn was the founder of the mindfulness-based stress reduction program. He was the first person to bring mindfulness techniques into the Western medical model, and so this is the most widely used definition of mindfulness in this part of the world. Historically, mindfulness is rooted as a crucial aspect to the Eightfold Path of ancient Buddhism. Presently, this Eastern philosophical practice is accepted as a secular first-person research methodology, which is broadly defined as contemplative inquiry here in the West. And so what that means is it has definite roots in Buddhism, but you don't need to identify as a Buddhist to be able to practice mindfulness. It's that secular first-person research methodology that we're calling contemplative inquiry, or turning inward. Recently, there has been an increase in interest to research mindfulness. Just a very brief list of ways that people are looking at the effects of mindfulness. Those topics include stress reduction, pain alleviation, increasing self-awareness, attention and concentration improvement, stimulating creativity, reducing addictive behaviors, cultivating acceptance, changing the brain structure, and enhancing performance in work, sports, or academics. The first activity that we'll try is called alternate nostril breathing. So a little bit of background. Breath work is one of the most important ways to refocus and gain awareness of the present moment. Also, breathing deeply focuses all of your attention on the simple yet profound movement that's keeping you alive. Following the rhythm of your own breath can be very grounding. It can anchor you to the present because the breath is always present. What's really cool about using breath work as a mindfulness technique is that it's a tool that we always have with us. We always have the breath available. And so choosing to take a couple minutes just to do some even count deep breathing, or else maybe something like the alternate nostril breath that we'll practice in a moment, can be very helpful in settling any frenzied emotions and bring us back to that present moment awareness. There have been some interesting research studies looking at the effects of different breath techniques. The ones cited here focus on alternate nostril breathing and then also deep breathing. All the citations are in parentheses at the end of each bullet point, but then the final slide of this presentation actually is the works cited page. So if you're at all interested in actually reading these studies or learning a little bit more about them, that information is for you at the end of the presentation. But there are a couple of studies that were done to show that there's been an increase in baseline oxygen consumption and verbal and spatial memory, as well as a decrease in sympathetic reactivity and digit pulse volume for those who practice alternate nostril breathing. Along the lines of that decrease in sympathetic reactivity, the second bullet point shows that there was a decrease in respiration rate, systolic blood pressure, and anxiety levels. And so not only is the agitation in the mind, the mental anxiety showing decrease, but also that physiological response, the respiration rate and blood pressure, have also been shown to decrease when practicing alternate nostril deep breathing. And then finally, a couple studies have shown that there's an increase in heart rate variability for people who practice these breath techniques. Heart rate variability is the variation in the time between each beat of the heart. And so higher heart rate variability indicates a healthier cardiovascular system. It's more adaptive to stressors. And so you want a higher heart rate variability because it shows that fluctuation between stressful situations and then back to baseline and then even the relaxed states. It's also associated with emotional regulation. So before we move into the guided video, the instructions for alternate nostril breathing are depicted to the right of the screen. If you want to pause the video and maybe just read through the instructions quietly to yourself, just so you kind of have an idea of what we'll be doing, please feel free to do so. It might seem complicated. I know there's a lot of steps on here, but when I actually guide you through the practice, it's not as complicated as this instruction list may seem. I hope you all had a chance to read through the steps on the right side of the last screen. If not, you can always pause the video and go back so you can read through it so you know what to expect. You don't need to memorize it because I'll walk you through each step, but it is helpful just to kind of read through it one time on your own so you know where we're going. Alternate nostril breathing does involve using the fingers to close each nostril, each side of the nose. So if you would like to pause the video and go wash your hands before you touch your face, please feel welcome to do so. When you're back and you're ready, we'll find a comfortable seated position, either sitting cross-legged on the floor, or if we're in a chair, coming to the front edge of the seat and planting the feet firmly on the ground. And wherever we're sitting, notice how our hip bones, our seat bones are rooted to either the bottom of a chair or else maybe onto the floor. And then starting to find a little bit of length in the spine. So we don't want to slouch our shoulders. We want to make sure that we're sitting up tall, but not too rigid. So we want to have enough room to expand the diaphragm. So when we deep breathe, we want to make sure that we're sending the breath all the way down to the bottom of the lungs. And so when we're slouched forward or when we don't have the best posture, then it makes it harder to send that breath all the way through the diaphragm. So making sure we have enough space. Hands can just rest in the lap, or else maybe letting the arms fall to either side of the chair. Whatever feels comfortable for you, where there won't be any tensions that you're holding throughout the practice. And we'll start by just doing a couple rounds of even count deep breathing, just to kind of open up our lungs and practice that deep diaphragm breathing. So if it's comfortable for you and if it feels safe, you can close your eyes. Or if you like to just find a soft gaze towards the tip of the nose out in front, whatever feels most comfortable for you right now. When you have your eyes resting, we'll go ahead and take an inhale through the nose for 4 counts and then exhale through the nose for 4 counts, just starting to create that space. So when you're ready, we'll go ahead and inhale, 2, 3, 4, exhale, 2, 3, 4, inhale, 2, 3, 4, exhale, 2, 3, 4, in, and out, in, out, one more, in, and out. When you finish this deep breathing, go ahead and just return to your natural breathing rhythm. Just notice how it feels to breathe deeply, something that we usually don't do unless we're instructed to do so, maybe in like a breathing technique or maybe in a yoga class or something like that. Most of the time we have very shallow breaths, and so using different breathing exercises can help us root ourselves in the present moment. So for alternate nostril breathing, we'll go ahead and use the right hand and we'll bend the middle and index fingers in towards the palm, leaving the thumb and ring and pinkies out. So go ahead and bring the hand out in front of the face. The thumb will rest on the right nostril, whereas the ring finger will rest on the left nostril. And we're not putting any pressure, we're not squeezing any nostrils closed. We're just gently pressing each side in to stop the airflow. And so if you want to maybe practice that and just kind of notice what it's like to be gentle. So I'll walk us through one round first. The first round starts by closing the right nostril and inhaling through the left. Then closing the left, briefly pausing, and then exhaling out the right. And then inhaling through the right. Close, briefly pause, and exhale out the left. And so if you want to let your hand relax, that is one round of alternate nostril breathing. So as you can see, we switch the sides that we're focusing on and come back after doing it on both sides. I will walk us through 3 more rounds by counting also. If you would like to pause the video and continue for a little bit longer, feel free to do so. So we'll go ahead and take that right hand, we'll bend the middle and pointer fingers in. We have the other fingers extended, bringing it towards the front of the face. We'll go ahead and close the right, and we'll inhale through the left. 2, 3, 4, close left, exhale right. 3, 4, inhale right. Close, exhale left. Inhale left. Close, exhale right. Inhale right. Close, exhale left. Inhale left. Close, exhale right. Inhale right. Close, exhale left. And gently letting that hand relax and returning back to our normal breathing rhythm. So maybe taking a couple of sniffs, kind of noticing how the nose feels. And I encourage you, if you're taking notes, to record any thoughts, any sensations, anything that came up during this practice for you. Maybe reflecting back to the deep, even count breath that we did before to kind of open up the lungs, create a little bit more space. That was preparing us to do alternate nostril breathing, to still send that breath all the way down to the bottom of the lungs, and then bringing it all the way back up as we exhale. So I encourage you to continue practicing if you would like, and using the breath as a new mindfulness tool. The third activity is gratitude practice. Expressing gratitude is a great skill to incorporate into your daily routine. It sets your mind to be more positive as you acknowledge appreciation for aspects of your life that may otherwise be taken for granted. And so gratitude practice is one of those contemplative inquiry practices. There have been a couple of research studies that look at the effects of long-term gratitude practice. And the first bullet point here shows that it indicates an increase in positive affect scores, so positive emotions, mood states, feelings, and overall psychological well-being. And then of particular interest to college students, there was a study done that showed emerging adults with higher levels of gratitude possess a propensity to perceive greater social support from others, which is a factor that increases life satisfaction. Moving into this activity, if you're taking notes, I would encourage you to maybe grab a notebook or a little scrap piece of paper, or if you don't want to write anything down or you don't have the paper nearby, it's okay to just think about these things in your mind. But we'll take just a brief pause here, and I'd like to ask you, what are 3 things you are grateful for today? And these things can be whatever comes to mind. So it doesn't have to be an extravagant, huge, amazing thing. It can be something as simple as waking up in the morning and drinking a cup of coffee before you started your day. So you choose how simple or complex you would like these 3 things to be. And if you're having trouble coming up with any ideas of what to think about, there are some gratitude prompts listed on the screen. And again, you are not limited to just these prompts. So choosing to pause the video if you need a little bit more time to record 3 things that you're grateful for today. It doesn't have to be 3 things. It can be 1 or 2 or maybe more than 3. Wherever your list takes you. And just something else to think about as you're recording your gratitude list. What about these 3 things makes you feel grateful? So why are these the things on your list? This isn't something you need to write about, but just something maybe to mentally reflect on. Really, why are you grateful for these things? Do you typically express gratitude for these things on your list today? Or are they typically something that you just take for granted or you don't really give much thought to? One more reflection point that I think is important to note is how can we start to incorporate gratitude into our daily lives? Right, so maybe something as simple as this activity now, just taking a couple minutes out of the day to record, to physically write down what we're grateful for, maybe keeping a gratitude journal. Maybe writing down one thing every day on a little scrap piece of paper and then putting it in a box and then reflecting and looking through the box maybe at the end of the week or the end of the month or the year. Another way to practice expressing gratitude is just to express it vocally, maybe out loud. Maybe when you wake up or before you go to bed, listing what you're grateful for in the mind and then even expressing it using audible words. And if a person happens to be on your gratitude list, maybe potentially sharing your gratitude with that person, letting that person know how grateful you are for them or something that they did for you, to just help to cultivate that positive attitude. The fourth activity is mindful eating. So based on what we've already talked about, you might have an idea of what mindful eating is. I've provided a formal definition here. Mindful eating is a non-judgmental process built on the intention to help individuals savor both the moment and the food to focus their full attention to the experience of eating. So it's a process of engaging all 5 senses throughout the eating process. Overall, the purpose is to develop a sense of what you are eating, when you are eating, and ultimately why you are eating. So using all the senses, we get a better idea of these questions of the what, when, why, maybe even how you're eating, like the speed, and taking those factors into consideration. There have been some research studies that show that mindfulness-based interventions aid in effectively encouraging healthy eating habits. So if we're starting to become more aware of what we're eating and when we're eating, that makes a lot of sense, right? So we're aware of the food choices we're making and how often, how frequently we are making those food choices. Another study showed mindful eating predicts a reduction in calorie consumption. So people who are trained in mindful eating or just more aware that they're eating mindfully might not consume as much food as they would if they were eating without practicing mindfulness. And finally, another study showed that mindful eating decreases sensitivity to delays for food-related outcomes when compared to a baseline rate. So for this activity, when I facilitate this face-to-face, I use raisins because they're easy, they're small, portable. I don't think anyone's allergic to raisins, right? But you can, since we're all doing this in our own spaces, you can find whatever type of food item you would like to use for this activity. So I don't recommend actually eating like a full snack. If you want to, feel free to do that. But just for the purpose of getting an idea of what mindful eating is, just like a small piece of food. So it could be a part of a snack, like a cracker, right? A piece of cereal, maybe a piece of fruit or dried fruit, like a raisin. Something small. It doesn't have to be anything big. And when you find your food item, take as much time as you need, and when you get your food item, come back to the video. And before that food even comes close to touching the tongue, the teeth, and the lips, I want you to just observe the food. So whatever it is, and if you're making observations and recording anything on paper, this is a really good way to take some notes. Imagine that you're describing this food to somebody who has never heard of this food. It's a brand new food to someone. You're describing this. You need to use all 5 of your senses to describe this item to another person. So look at the color of the food. Maybe notice the texture of the food, what it feels like when you hold it in your hand or maybe between the fingers. And starting to become aware of maybe how heavy the food is or the piece of food. Becoming aware of any smells that this food has. Maybe we can smell it when it's just held in the hand, or else maybe if we bring it right up to the nose and take a full deep breath in, breathing in the aroma of this food. Any other observations while we're just examining the food item can be recorded. And when you're ready, I encourage you to take the tiniest first bite of this small morsel of food. And as you're biting into the food, notice the texture of the food in the mouth. As you slowly begin to chew the food, maybe notice if the smell starts to change as you start to chew the food without swallowing. We're still chewing that food. Maybe we can start to taste the food. Maybe the texture is starting to change as we continue chewing the food, and then when we're ready, gently swallow and notice the sensation of that food sliding down the throat and landing into the stomach. Maybe the taste changes after we've swallowed the food. And pausing briefly to notice any sensations and which sense is the strongest. And then taking your time to finish consuming the food mindfully, using all 5 senses. See if you notice anything different when you take the next bite of the food. I'm encouraging you to eat as slowly as possible. Noticing the sensations between the teeth, how the food feels as you're chewing it. If you'd like to pause the video and then continue mindfully eating your food, please do so. And then when you're ready, come back and we'll finish with the reflection. So by using all of your senses, you have the potential to appreciate all of the characteristics of the food. You're creating a space to savor the bites, eat slower, digest better, and really enjoy the food even more when eating mindfully. And now, if you used something small like a raisin, for example, or maybe a cracker or a piece of fruit, something small, I encourage you to eat as slow as possible, and this might have felt really different, maybe weird, maybe a new experience, especially something that's so small that we might be used to just eating quickly in one bite, a couple chews, and then we swallow, right? So mindful eating is encouraging us to be deliberate about how we're consuming the food. Oftentimes it can be really easy to habitually eat while doing other activities, right? On a college campus, that's especially true. How many times do we see people, and have we done this ourselves, where we are eating lunch as we're running from class to class, and we're even eating in class sometimes just because we don't have enough time. And that's okay. We're not always going to be able to mindfully eat, but when we do have opportunities to slow down, and to be mindful, it's important to really savor those experiences so we can create this sense of being present with the food. So the next time that you actually sit down to eat a full snack or a full meal, I encourage you to do so mindfully. The final activity is the body scan meditation. The purpose of a body scan is to develop a sense of body and mind connection while fostering feelings of relaxation and calmness. So I found one research study pretty recent last year that showed that the body scan can increase happiness, encourage emotional stability, and a feeling of harmony, unify consciousness, and promote mindfulness. So before I read this script to you, I encourage you to check in with the body. Maybe record or make a mental note of any thoughts, feelings, or physical observations prior to starting the body scan. So just briefly checking in. It's important to do this throughout the day anyways, so it's a good habit to get into. It's a mindfulness technique too, just to kind of observe the body and check in, see how we're doing. If you want to write anything down, feel free to do so. Maybe pause the video to record your observations. And then if you'd like, start to find a comfortable position. This will be about a 10-minute guided body scan meditation. So if you'd like to stay seated for the duration of this practice, you are welcome to do so. Or since we're all in our own space, if you would like to lie down, maybe on the floor or maybe on a bed, that's also an option. Also adjusting the lighting. If you would like to keep the lights on, that's okay. Or if you like to dim the lights or maybe turn them all the way off, that's also another option. This guided body scan meditation is intended to help you enter a very deep state of relaxation. So it's best if you can manage to stay awake throughout the entire exercise. It's also important to remember to not try to relax because this will just create more tension. Instead, become aware of each passing moment and just accept what is happening within you, seeing it is in the present. Just keeping your natural breathing rhythm for a moment, kind of checking in with that breath, seeing if we can draw our awareness to how maybe the belly might rise and fall naturally as we're breathing. Maybe also bringing our awareness to the heart. Maybe we can feel the heart beating. Maybe we can tune in a little bit more when we take time to become aware of these bodily sensations, these functions that happen without telling them to happen. And if at any time you'd like to stop the body scan, you're more than welcome to do so. So begin by coming into your comfortable position, getting any last wiggles out. Your hands can be resting gently in your lap or else to the side of the body. And if it feels comfortable and safe, allowing your eyes to close, or else maybe finding a soft gaze out towards the tip of the nose. We'll start by taking several long, slow, deep breaths, breathing in fully and exhaling slowly. Breathing in through your nose and exhaling out through the nose. Notice how your stomach expands on that inhale and relaxes and lets go on the exhale. Begin to let go of noises around you, starting to shift your attention from the outside to the inside. And if you're distracted by sounds in the room, simply notice them, then bring your focus back to your breathing. Now slowly bring your attention down to your feet. Begin observing sensations in your feet. You might want to wiggle your toes a little, feeling your toes against your socks or your shoes. Or if you're not wearing socks or shoes, maybe just notice the texture of the ground. You might imagine sending your breath down to your feet as if the breath is traveling through the nose to the lungs, through the abdomen, all the way down the body to the tips of your toes, and then back up again, out through your nose on the exhale. Perhaps you don't feel anything at all, and that is fine too. In that case, merely allow yourself to feel the sensation of not feeling anything. When you are ready, allow your feet to dissolve and move your attention up to your ankles, calves, knees, and thighs. Observe the sensations you are experiencing throughout your legs. Breathe into and out from the legs. And if your mind begins to wander during this exercise, gently notice this without judgment. And then do your best to bring the attention back to noticing sensations in the legs. If you notice any discomfort, pain, or stiffness, don't judge this, simply note it. Observe how all sensations rise and fall, shifting and changing from moment to moment. Notice how no sensation is permanent. Observe and allow the sensations to be in the moment just as they are. Breathing into and out from the legs. Then on the next out breath, allow the legs to dissolve. Move to the sensations in your lower back and pelvis, softening and releasing as you breathe in and out. Slowly move your attention up to your mid-back, the upper back. Just becoming curious about the sensations here. You might become aware of sensations in the muscles, maybe the temperature or points of contact with the earth. With each out breath, you may let go of any tension held in this area. Very gently shift your focus to your stomach and all the internal organs here. Perhaps you notice the feeling of clothing, the process of digestion, or the belly rising or falling with each breath. And if you notice opinions arising about these areas, gently let them go and return to simply noticing. As you continue to breathe, bring your awareness to the chest and heart region and just notice your heartbeat. Observe how the chest rises during the inhale and how the chest falls during the exhale. Let go of any judgments that may arise. On the next out-breath, shift the focus to your hands and fingertips. See if you can channel your breathing into and out of this area as if you were breathing into and out from your hands. Maybe pulsing the hands a few times, squeezing those fingers in to make a fist, and then gently relax and stretch them outward. If your mind begins to wander, simply bring it back to the sensations present in the hands. On the next out-breath, shift the focus and bring your awareness up into your arms. Observe the sensation or lack of sensation that may be occurring here. You might notice some difference between the left arm and the right arm. There's no need to judge this. As you exhale, you may experience each arm soften and release any tension. Continue to breathe and shift focus to the neck, shoulder, and throat region. This is an area where there is often a lot of tension held. Be with the sensations present here. It could be tightness or holding. You may notice the shoulders moving along with the breath. Let go of any thoughts or stories you are telling about this area. As you breathe, you may feel tension rolling off your shoulders. On the next out-breath, shift your focus and direct your attention to the scalp, head, and face. Observe all the sensations occurring here. Notice the movement of the air as you breathe into or out of the nostrils. Maybe you can feel that subtle passing of air. As you exhale, you might notice the softening of any tension held in the face. Now allow your attention to expand out to include the entire body as a whole. Bring into your awareness the top of your head all the way down to the tips of your toes. Feel the gentle rhythm of the breath as it moves through the body. As you come to the end of this practice, take a full, deep breath in, taking in all the energy of this practice, and then gently exhale fully. When you are ready, gently bring your eyes back to focus and return your attention to the present moment. Maybe starting to wiggle the toes or the fingers and just letting these small, subtle movements grow up through the body. If you chose to lie down, maybe hugging the knees in towards the chest and then turning to rest on one side. And then gently, when you're ready, pushing yourself to come back up to a seated position. I encourage you to take a moment to reflect on your experience with the body scan meditation. If you are taking notes, feel free to pause the video and reflect on how you are feeling mentally and also how you're feeling physically. Do you feel a sense of unification between the mind and the body? And at a later time, it might be interesting to go back and read your observations before the body scan, and then read the observations recorded after the body scan. So some concluding points. First, meditation is a progressive journey that takes time and is not the same for everyone. And going off of that first main point, meditation will also not be the same every time that you try it. And that's okay. That's how it's supposed to work. We'll always have different experiences and different sensations. And coming from a point of non-judgment and no expectation is really important to keep in mind when we're practicing meditation. Second, mindfulness is a type of meditative technique that is characterized by being aware of the present moment in a non-judgmental way. I think we worked through that pretty diligently throughout this presentation. And third, implementing these practices into your daily life may help alleviate stress and create a healthier, more resilient mind as you strive to work with emotions and environmental factors rather than trying to work against them. So if we can reflect to the mindful jar activity, remember how we could see clearly through the jar when we had practiced mindfulness and settled down and let that glitter fall to the bottom. We changed our perspective, we changed our relationship with the glitter, whereas when it was shaken up and we were letting stress and chaos consume our minds, we could not see clearly to the other side of the jar. And then up in the right-hand corner, there's a really fun little cartoon. We see a human and a dog walking in a park. And we see 4 trees and a sun, and the human and the dog walking towards those trees. In the human's mind, on the left-hand side, there's all kinds of chaos going on. We see other people, we see a car, music notes, little emojis, emotion faces in there, a keyboard, a door with some mail or letters coming out. There's a lot going on in the human's mind. When we look to the right side of the cartoon, we see the dog's thought bubble. And inside of the dog's thought bubble is the exact environment in which the human and the dog are currently present. We see 4 trees and a sun. And so this cartoon is a good reminder to ask ourselves if we're being mindful, like the dog, where we're fully present in our current environment, or if our minds are full, like the human, where it's worried about all of these different things that aren't actually in the present moment.